Hello, fight fans. I am Jason Burgos for Sherdog.com, and I am joined by one of the top stars of the UFC's women's featherweight division. However, although she's returning to competition on December 20th, it won't be in the UFC Octagon, but instead in a submission underground cage, when she faces off with the promotion's top female star and Amanda Loewen in the co-main event of Submission Underground 19. And that woman I speak of is the Phenom herself, Felicia Spencer. Madam Phenom, thanks for the time to talk the latest in your athletic endeavors.
Well, thanks for having me on. What an intro.
My pleasure. Well earned. I have so much to ask you about, so many things to talk about in terms of the MMA career, the grappling going on at the end of the month. But first, I wanted to go into the UFC related stuff. So the first obvious question to ask is about your inactivity in the second half of 2020. From February to June, fought twice, including the title fight with Amanda Nunes. Are there any specific reasons we haven't seen you since that fight? Was it because of, to get clearance after, it was said like you needed clearance from a surgeon in terms of a left orbital injury, a nasal fracture after the fight? Or was there other reasons like, just difficulties with booking, which is often a problem in the UFC, just needed a break? What was the reason we haven't seen you since June?
Well, a big reason after my fight, I told the UFC, that I did want time to recover. I listened to a lot of experienced fighters and their opinions on coming back too soon. And there's a lot of different opinions on it, but I'm definitely on the side of when I'm not, I know that I took a lot of damage on June 6th, so I'm not delusional about the level of damage I took. I know I get finished. I didn't get knocked out, but I don't take it lightly. So I did take a lot of damage, and I didn't want to come back too soon, and then, and have that be the turning point where where the lights do go out in my fight or something like that. So DC had a lot of interesting comments about it on his show shortly after my fight, and it really just made me want to stay away. And also, it kind of was nice to sit back and not stress about who I might fight, and kind of just division develop and play out. I was really looking forward to the fight that didn't happen, obviously, on December 12th, for the title fight. Because, anything could happen, and depending on the outcome, there could have been some interesting matchups from there. And, I just wanted to, I don't think it was missing me, in that way. So I just see what would happen.
Well, it was canceled, and you did mention it earlier, the fight with Megan Anderson, Amanda Nunes coming up. I mean, your opinion on that, being a person that's just been in the cage with Amanda, is important to a lot of people. How do you see that fight playing out? What are your thoughts on how it could go? And do you think Megan could be the person to do something no woman has been able to do to Amanda in almost 6 years now?
I'm still super interested in this fight, and I know that on any given night, it's all about the decisions that you make in the octagon. So everyone that's in the UFC is there for a reason. We're all skilled. We all have, proven that. So it's all, what it comes down to is just what decisions do I make and what decisions does she make and who can capitalize on what. And I know that anyone can beat anyone on any given night. We've seen it time and time again with the underdog pulling through. And, as much as I feel like I could have been an underdog story myself, I wasn't, and that's okay. But I feel like it's always possible. And I think there's always a much stronger possibility than people give it credit for, especially regarding Megan, and especially because people always go to like MMA math and, I beat Megan. So it makes sense that Megan beat Amanda, but it's really possible, and I could definitely see it happening. And I feel like it would make the division gain a lot of attention and have a lot of interest in maybe even like a rematch with me and Megan, or her. I imagine Nunes might want a rematch first, or you never know what would happen, but it would definitely make it interesting in the case that Megan beats Amanda. So, and I could totally see that happening too. So we'll just have to wait and see.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because that perfectly transitions to kind of where it was going in terms of bringing attention to the division. Because, say, for example, the flyweight division at one time in the UFC seemed in trouble, but things have turned around now. A title fight has headlined the last pay-per-view, going about headlining the pay-per-view this week. However, the effort in like talent development, promotion for the women's featherweight division still leaves a lot to be desired. There is still no division rankings on the UFC site. Not many talent are listed as featherweight talent in the division. Does part of you have like concern about the future of the division, especially when like Dana White this past weekend suggests there could be a lot of cuts to the roster? Like he let Cyborg pretty much go to Bellator without much of a fight, which is a huge, loss for the division, and even publicly questioning the division's future if or when she retires. Is that ever, do you wish they put far more effort than they do into the division and ever worry about the division's future?
I try not to worry about the things I can't control, but it's definitely a thought that's come to mind a lot. I feel like they're trying to build it, so I don't think that there's going to be a lot of cuts in the division. So I don't really stress about that. But if it happened, what can I do? But they had a featherweight fight on the Contender Series, and they signed Danielle. So that was just like a very small step in me, saying that I'm pretty comfortable with the division's status. Because I feel like if they were gonna have that intention, or scrap it after the next title fight or whatever the case may be, they probably wouldn't have signed her to begin with.
True.
So I'm guessing that they'll be trying to sign some more featherweights to match her up, and then maybe get someone for me, or who knows what's gonna happen. But I'm under the impression that I'm, going to stay for a few more fights at least. So I'm having that outlook on it.
Are you the type of the athlete that watches a broad range of the sport, like in terms of acts? That because do you see people in Invicta? Do you see people in other promotions? Do you see people in LFA in the regional scene working their way up at all? They say there's a lot of talented female featherweights out there. These girls are all good. The UFC needs to contact them. Do you see like a good, a lot of depth in the division around the world? Just the UFC just needs to call these women?
I try to see more, but I definitely am not someone that's like always watching everything. So yeah. I don't know how much I should maybe, but I know, I've seen more like headlines for other ones. I know Icon just signed a name, and Invicta, obviously I'm more invested in Invicta. I watch almost everyone, and I know they just had a big fight with Kayla on there. Yep. And from what I understand, she's intending to fight again in the beginning of the year for Invicta, and then going back to PFL. So maybe in a couple of years, the UFC, when she's available, will take her. Clarissa Shields too. I thought that was pretty cool that she was got signed to PFL. So I know PFL is a totally different organization, but they are on ESPN, which is where UFC is. So I feel like there's an eventual connection that could be made for some of the featherweights or their lightweights, but pretty close. I know that there are lots of promotions all around the world where they could be getting featherweights from. So I'm hoping that there'll be more and more, just scouting and just giving people a chance to come in and show what they can do.
Let's talk about this grappling bout on the 20th for Submission Underground. They have become like this really cool outlet for a lot of big-time MMA fighters that come, like you just mentioned, it's an opportunity to compete at a really high level without taking the brutalness of MMA training and a fight and beating your body in that kind of way. Like, how have you been a person that's been looking at Submission Underground for some time? Like, man, I really want to compete for there. And how did the ball get rolling on this pairing of you being in Submission Underground in a major fight in the co-main event of maybe the biggest card in Submission Underground history?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I realized that my last grappling match, like strictly grappling tournament that I did, was almost 8 years ago. Wow. And after that, I started to compete in MMA, and I started to, win a lot. And my last match, actually, I lost. I lost both of my matches that day. So it kind of left like a anxious taste in my mouth, like just a bad taste of losing. And then I started winning in MMA. And, for many years, I think I was intentionally avoiding the idea of competing in grappling just because it just made me anxious. Again, like I've kind of come to terms that like there have been a lot of anxious things that I've just like hidden from myself almost. So now I'm, honestly in Orlando where I'm at, they've been having some big tournaments coming for jiu-jitsu. So the Pan Ams, and they're about to have the Worlds next week. So my coach was like, "Oh, Fee, you got to do, Pan Ams," and I just turned 30, so I could do the Masters, World, and he was, really pushing me to do the Worlds, and I was like, "All right, well, I will consider it tonight. I promise I will at least consider the idea of doing it," because I've been so anxious to do any grappling tournaments. I've just been like, I don't know, I just don't really want to do it. I was like, I don't know. So then the next day is when I got a phone call from my other coach, and he's like, hey, he has a connection with someone who knows Chael Sonnen, and Amanda Loewen's opponent had fallen through, and they were looking for someone, and my name came up, and they asked me if I wanted to do it, and I was like, oh, man, well, this is kind of cool. I guess it's just one match. I already know who I'm going against. They're gonna fly me to Portland, so it's kind of like a whole experience. And I was like, all right, you know what? I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna suck it up and do it. I'm gonna have fun. So there've been a lot of things recently in my life that just really made me really want to just take every opportunity, and just not be afraid to do anything. Like I'm really just doing this to have fun. It's like there's no pressure. I feel like, best case scenario, I go and I win the belt. I beat Amanda. Worst case scenario, I got beat by a really badass black belt from Portland that beat everyone else she's ever been against. So I'm like, best case and worst scenario is still fine with me, and I'm kind of going in it with that outlook. Like, I'm just gonna enjoy it and just, take the opportunity. Like, so many people want this opportunity to fight for Submission Underground, and, I'm just gonna take it. I'm just gonna have fun with it and see where it goes.
And I'm glad you brought up how credentialed Amanda is, because she is badass. Hasn't lost yet at all. Along with Craig Jones, now Mason Fowler, Amanda really has become one of the faces of the promotion. She has never lost, like I said, beaten UFC stars like Jessica Ai, Jillian Roberts to have them on her hit list. Jillian is a very good grappler, but like Jessica, is on the smaller side. Your fight is similar, to, at least to me, to the Fowler fight in the main event versus Ishii, in that the star of SUG will be challenged by another very good grappler who will likely have either a notable size advantage or maybe just a really notable strength advantage. Going into this fight, is that something you have thought about using often in terms of your strategy for Amanda, and working for positions where maybe size or strength over Amanda can help you put her in bad positions?
Yeah, I've definitely thought about, how she's usually, probably about 10 pounds heavier than the other competition she face, and I'm probably about 10 pounds heavier than her, somewhere around there. So, I definitely thought about it. I don't want to, dwell on that and like count on my size winning, because I definitely don't, especially what you did. But I think that it can play a part. I'll feel a little bit different. Oops, sorry, my car lights just went off. I'll feel a little bit different, and hopefully it'll play to my advantage. But I don't want that. I don't want to just like rely on my size to win. I want it. I think I will be stronger, and I will be able to impose my will a little bit and use. I have a pretty high pressure grappling game, so I feel like my pressure and my grinding can feel a little different, especially being a little bit bigger than her normal competition.
When I interviewed Craig Jones early in the year, he said with great confidence that he felt when MMA fighters come into grappling settings against top level grapplers like himself, Amanda, stuff like that, who trains all the time in this particular art, that they start kind of off with a disadvantage, and the results are kind of there in a way. He beat every MMA fighter in SUG and dominantly guys like Gilbert Burns, Vinny Magalesh. Likewise for Amanda. How have you been preparing for this bout, considering you are an active MMA star, training to get better at all aspects, because that is your primary career, and can't just do grappling for a whole year at a time if you wanted to? Have you done anything differently recently, or have you been watching a lot of tape on Amanda to kind of break this trend of MMA stars going into SUG and having trouble with the top stars, or have you maybe practiced a lot for the EBI rules and the overtimes, which is that overtimes are a big part of these bouts in Submission Underground?
Yeah, I had to kind of learn a little bit about the rules, because I didn't, like I said, don't follow every aspect of the sport as much as I wish I did. So I did kind of learn about that a little bit, and it's absolutely true. It is, I think, a disadvantage in that way. But I have been training jiu-jitsu since I was 12 years old, so I feel like there's a level of mat time that I have that's just always going to be with me, and I for this match, I'm not overthinking it. I'm not stressing it. This is going to be like my fun day before my so I know she's ready to get into battle. This is like her main stage of competition, and her mindset might come in a little bit more intense than mine. I'm taking it seriously. Obviously, I would love to take that belt home and to win and to show my skills, especially after losing big opportunity. It would be great to come in and take a big one home. But I feel like if I'm, just I'm just gonna come in with a different mindset. Recently just kind of thinking about where her strengths are. I know she's really. I think a lot of the time her matches kind of stall a little bit, and then she wins in overtime a
Yes.
lot.
Yep.
I've been thinking about that and kind of drilling that. I haven't been killing my body though, because it was kind of a not short notice, but it was like 5 weeks or something notice. So just kind of preparing my body to be healthy and ready to go.